My name's Dave Pilgrim, and I'm a mental health policy researcher. The co-production paradigm, I think, is part of a wider trajectory in society about involving citizens, involving service users, partly delegating responsibility to them, and costs. It's a number of things, and I think it ties in with other initiatives like personalisation, recovery, user involvement. And in fact, when I think about co-production in mental health services, I see it mainly as an extension of an idea that's been around since the 1980s about user involvement, although co-production itself maybe came from a different position in policy, particularly around community policing and other issues. The limits to it, essentially, I think, are around the problem of the existence of services which are there to remove people from society. That means inevitably the actions of professionals are focused on risk, on legal procedures. They're not necessarily at the time focused upon the identified patient's needs. Indeed, the whole question of need becomes ambiguous. Most of the time we think about need as something that people are saying, I want something, express need. But in psychiatric services, it's often the fact that the need is being defined by other people, not the actual identified patient. This makes it very, very complex and problematic. Moreover, once people are detained, a number of processes delete or impede normal citizenship. People lose their liberty without trial, things are done to them that they didn't ask for, they may be put in solitary confinement, which is called seclusion in services. None of these really conducive to enhanced citizenship, and yet the co-production paradigm, I think, is largely predicated on the idea that citizens are going to be involved, they're going to be respected, their autonomy is going to be encouraged, etc. So I think there are real contradictions about trying to use a co-production paradigm within mental health services. I do think, though, that mental health services, even coerced ones, even ones involving involuntary detention, compulsion, etc., still can be humanised. I think we can soften them. I think we can do things better or worse for people in closed environments. But that is not the same thing as co-production. Neither is the idea of co-production written about, propaganda created. I think users, for instance, can be involved with professionals in writing documents about co-production, in writing articles about it, but talking about co-production and actual co-production of services are logically quite separate. So I think they're the main concerns I would have about co-production and its genuine applicability within the setting, within settings which are dominated by coercion and compulsion, which is often the case in mental health work, whether it's in prisons, high security services, medium security services, or just ordinary acute psychiatric units, which is the typical setting with specialist services function. Okay, so this particular moment we've got, this space in which people are talking about co-production, we can either see it as sort of old wine in new bottles, it's user involvement, it's whatever, or we can think it's part of a wider set of questions around citizens pushing in an optimistic or hopeful way to have their voices heard. Now that is very interesting because in terms of mental health work, who are the citizens? Hopeful about what? Is it about being more efficient at risk management for those who are sane by common consent, for instance? Or is it about identified patients saying, leave us alone, stop treating me like an object within a legal process? And I think this could cut two ways. I think with the co-production question around mental health could either go down the route of where the focus is on wider society and citizens more and more demanding that professionals do as what's expected of them to keep their environment safe and risk-free, or it could go down the route of a stronger campaign, I think, around legal questions around risk. For instance, the abolition of the Mental Health Act. Should the Act itself be abolished? Should we replace it instead by some more level playing field, like a something around legislation to do with dangerousness, which brackets mental state, which to my mind might be much more satisfactory to people who are identified psychiatric patients. It would be more fair-minded. It would only have enormous implications though, because lots of forms of risk exist in society which we can predict, such as riding horses, or drinking too much alcohol, or climbing mountains, or boxing. So this would have major implications, but at least it would create a more optimistic and inclusive discussion in society about how we should manage risk, how we should manage scenarios that make us uncomfortable, that we don't like. We want somebody to do something. At the moment it's narrowly focused upon one group of people, where maybe we should open the debate out about what that's about and how we should do it differently.